Thank you for watching CTR TV and our Capital Conversation. I'm Christy Olds. We start off today with Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff of Norwalk. Now, you have been in the state legislature for nearly 20 years, since 2001, first as a state rep, then as a state senator, lifelong Norwalk resident, and also a realtor. So let's talk about your community first. 5 generations of your family have lived in Norwalk. Why do you stay there?
It's a great community. Norwalk is the 6th largest city in Connecticut. It's a place that is extremely diverse in so many different ways. It's right on the coastline. We have great beaches, great parks. I think we have a great school system. And we have a lot of development going on right now. A lot of people are looking to invest in our city. So you have a really good center core of our city, and then you also have great kind of outlying suburbs. And so I think it has a lot, and it's an hour outside of New York City. What's not to love about it?
Turning to this legislative session, it is going to be a difficult one. What's your overall prediction for how it's going to go?
Well, it's a short session this year, so we talk to folks and try to educate them a little bit on the sessions. So we have a long session, which was last year, which was an extremely long session because of the budget, but it's normally January to June. This year will be February to May. And interestingly enough is that sometimes we get as many bills passed as we would in a long session. So even though the time is crunched, you still get as much done. I think we'll have to just see. I think we did a bipartisan budget last year, and that has produced very good relationships amongst the leaders, and there's a sense of trust and working together, which by the way I think we've always had. I always tell people that about 85% of the bills that we pass in the state Senate are unanimous, and 95% are bipartisan. So we're not Washington. We tend to work things out in the committee process, and that it's for all of us. I think we all just want what's best for Connecticut. Now, we may not always agree, and that's okay. That's why we all vote, and that's why sometimes we're in different parties. But sometimes you get a Democrat from Fairfield County disagrees with a Democrat in another area, or you get a Republican from one part of the state disagrees with a Republican from another part of the state, or people just disagree on different things. And that's okay. That's why people send us up to Hartford, and we hopefully work things out.
When it comes to issues impacting real estate, what is your top priority, if you have one, for this session?
Well, part of this is we want to make sure our state continues to grow. We've had a lot of good news come out of the media the last few weeks regarding 7,000 new jobs that have come in. Hartford is considered the 4th best place for tech jobs. We've had a number of other types of things, like Henkel Corporation just opened up their R&D unit in Stamford. Electric Boat is hiring, Pratt & Whitney's hiring, Sikorsky's hiring. So all those things are good. We want to make sure that the housing market continues to grow, and houses are able to sell because of the fact that people are moving into the state. So we've got to make sure that we are focused on improving our transportation system. We've got to make sure that we're focused on our education system. Housing, and especially as it relates to affordable housing, is extremely important for our economy. Investing in our cities, because that's where a lot of people want to live right now. So all those things are important. So there's ways in which we invest, but there's also ways in which we protect the real estate market as well, and try not to put any additional burdens on the market, and so it can flourish.
So talking transportation, the governor put out his proposal for the way he thinks we can address our transportation problems in the state. What do you feel is the best approach?
My feeling has been that we should be doing what's called a transportation authority. You have in other states, you have transportation authorities that really look at the entire transportation network that they have in their states and figure out how best to invest and how best to manage that. In Connecticut, we have a port authority that's doing great things for our ports, because we know that can grow our economy, not just for industry, but for recreation. We have an airport authority that has been doing a great job, especially as it relates to Bradley International Airport and others around the state as well. And so they've seen some success there. So authorities allow movement to be nimble, and allows it to work as quickly as possible, and to do some of the things that maybe legislatures take a little bit longer to do, and they can do it in a way that meets the market demand. So I think a transportation authority is really the way to go, rather than saying this is an answer or that's an answer. I know the governor came out with a number of various and specific proposals that he wanted to do. I'd rather have this authority look at those kinds of things and determine if those are the right things. Personally, I would say that, well, I haven't taken a position on tolls at all. I've not been a fan. I know we do need to make sure that we have the funds so that we have bridges and roads that work. We have a train system that runs on time, that we have buses that integrate with our trains, and that we can get people from point A to point B with certainty and the ability to not sit in traffic all the time. But yeah, I'm not a fan of raising the gas tax for sure. I think that's a non-starter. And the proposal of a tire tax doesn't excite me as well. So, I mean, we'll see what the governor has to say and how that kind of puts it together. I will also say that, just on another note, the Department of Transportation has put out a proposal to raise train fares about 10%. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan. I'm vehemently opposed to that. I think we need to figure out other ways to do that by not raising fares. They just had a fare increase before. So in my opinion, that's why I think this Transportation Authority needs to work it out, because otherwise you're just in silos with various proposals.
Does that Transportation Authority add just another level of approvals and bureaucracy, or would it actually speed things up?
I think it would actually speed things up, because if the will of the legislature or of a Transportation Authority would be to go in the direction of tolls, the legislature can't possibly micromanage where they would go or how much they would be and how it would all kind of work out. And I mean, even if it were approved today, it would be 4 to 5 years before they came online anyway. And these would be those transponders, you would just literally drive under them and you wouldn't even know. But there's a lot of details to be worked out. So it's something that requires a little bit more level of detail than something that the legislature would be able to give it.
Do you think that statewide property tax on second homes and investment properties may resurface this year? I
don't think so, because I think that there were a number of people who were, I think they may have liked the concept in a way, because if they thought that somebody lived in Florida, that was their primary residence, and they had a second home here in Connecticut, that might have been enticing because they weren't voters here. But the way it worked is, even if somebody had a home here in Hartford, and they may have had a little place down on the coast or around one of the lakes in Connecticut, they would also be part of that whole second home issue. So I think that when the proposal came out, there were some folks who said, I'm not so sure about this anymore. So I don't know that it definitely won't be raised. I just don't know if there's a support there to pass it.
The budget that we did pass late last year is already in the red.
Yep.
So the governor put out this deficit mitigation plan. It includes that expanded conveyance tax that people would have to pay when they sell a house. That would add $102.4 million before the end of fiscal year 19. Do you think that'll work? Do you plan to oppose it? Do you think it's going to go anywhere? Well,
I opposed it last year in the budget, and it came out. The governor knew where I stood on that issue as well. So, is it going to keep coming back? It probably will. But it's a matter of who stands up and if there's enough opposition to it. So it's even more than just me. You need other folks to stand in opposition to it as well. But if you're in the room, it certainly helps to have that voice to say, no, we're not doing this. We need to find some other way to do it. I will say that we actually had quite a lot of money come into our Treasury at the end of the year, about an extra $900 million worth. But because of many structural changes we made in the budget, we can't touch that money, which I'm actually okay with. So one of the priorities for the Senate Democratic Caucus was to do what's called a volatility cap. So if you have money coming in over what you've budgeted, that money needs to go into the rainy day fund, and then it needs to go, after you've filled that up to a certain point, then goes to paying down pension debt. So a lot of that money, the extra $900 million, 890 million of it we can't touch, 10 million of it we can. So I think in the long run, that's good, because we want to make sure that we are not making the same mistakes past legislatures did for decade upon decade upon decade, that we are now paying for. Because I always used to say, must have been great to be a leader many, many years ago, because all you had to do was say yes. Now we have to say no a lot of times.
It has been an interesting past 4 years. Well, really, your 4 years as majority leader have been some of the toughest years.
Yes, I would say good leaders are made in tough times, because when it's good times, it's easy to say yes. When you have to, this year we have a Senate that's 18 to 18, We got a House that's 79 to 72, but we still managed to do a bipartisan budget. We were able to get it done, and it's called working together. So, those are the things you have to use all your skills. And I would say a lot, like you asked me before, a lot of the skills that I've picked up as being a realtor has come in handy during these budget negotiations.
This is a big election cycle in the state.
Yep.
You mentioned the Senate split 18-18, slight majority for the Democrats in the House. Obviously the governor's race with Malloy not seeking re-election. A lot of people in that race, all the state legislators are up for election as well. Mm-hmm. What is going to shape this year in terms of the election?
Well, I think you saw a little bit. I think the national political scene definitely plays a role in what's happening this November. We saw that last year with the local races, for sure. Because I think you even saw that even before that. You saw towns that had been, say, blue, turn red during the Obama years, and now maybe during the Trump years, some of the red ones are turning blue again. I think but it also depends on the quality of your candidates. So there's certainly a number of candidates out there who are filing early to run. I think we're going to see a lot of candidates like we never have before. And I think it all just depends on the quality of candidates, their message, what they're talking about, how people feel about Connecticut, a number of things, how the session goes, what we end up passing or not. So there's never one thing that kind of drives people, but I think it's kind of how people feel generally about the economy and how they see the future. And that's really our job. Our job is to not look election to election. Our job is to look long-term, to make the long-term decisions to grow this economy so that it's continue to be a great place to live for our children and our grandchildren.
Obviously, you are elected to represent a certain section of the state, a certain section of people. What is the best way for constituents to get in touch with you personally and maybe in general when you're talking about any lawmaker?
Right. Well, I would say this, that email is always a good way. And all my information is on my website. I put my home number out there so people can call me. It's the only home number I have. Social media, people can reach me, and people reach me all over in social media, whether it's on Facebook at my Majority Leader page, or on Twitter, or Instagram, or LinkedIn. I'm even trying to Snapchat a little bit more, taking lessons from my kids on how to do that. Yeah, trying to do that. But so for me, I just try to make it as easy as possible and try to be as accessible as I can. So that's why I put out my home number. Like I said, email is great, and then social media. I say for most legislators, probably email or phone is good. But however people contact you, they contact you, and it's the same no matter what. So you have to be responsive, and I think that's really important for people to feel like you're being responsive to them. You're answering their questions about whatever it is, whether it's a mundane issue to you, but it's an important issue to them. And so whatever they contact you for, you need to have an answer.
You're pretty active when it comes to social media.
Mm-hmm.
You have your personal page, you have a Majority Leader page, you have lots of pages, and you also have a page for this little guy, little girl.
Little girl, yeah.
This is Molly.
Yeah.
She is a rescue, pit
Mm-hmm.
bull.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me where you got her from and why you got her.
Yeah, well, this is our third rescue. My first one was for my bachelor pad, even before I was married. It was Mackenzie. And then when she passed away, we got Riley, and she passed away this June, and then we got Molly. Mackenzie came from Paws, Riley came from Bully Breed Rescue, and Molly came from the Westport Animal Shelter, otherwise known as the Pound. Mm-hmm. Molly was abandoned somewhere around exit 18 on I-95 in Westport by Sherwood Island. Apparently other dogs are as well. And so I was looking on Pet Finder after Riley passed away, and I'm a dog person, so I wanted to get another dog. And my wife and kids were like, yep, we should get another dog, because there's so many out there that need rescuing. And so, by the way, I would probably rescue about another 4 or 5 if I could. And so we got Molly. She's about a year old or so, maybe a little more than a year old. Lots of energy. She loves to play with the ball, and she sat there on Sunday, and she's like, "When are we playing?" So
keeps you busy.
She's a good girl, and we love her. And it's really interesting because the time it takes for them to kind of feel like it's home for them. I mean, sometimes it didn't take her too long, but you see over time how she really does kind of, and any rescue dog, how it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of settle in and understand the routines and feel comfortable. There's a 3-day, 3-week, 3-month kind of rule with them, and I think just more and more she just feels, just happy to be here, and it goes back to the old saying of who rescued who. And I think if anybody gets a pet, whether it's a dog or a cat or whatever it is, they should just rescue. I would never purchase an animal, and there's so many out there, and they are just the most loyal animal. If you rescue, they know it. They know that you rescued them, and they're just loyal to the day as long.
Okay. Any closing thoughts?
Well, just, we live in a great state that, we're not a state that's not free from challenges, but I don't know any state that's free from challenges these days, or any place that is. But that said, we do live in a great state. We have a place that is always rises to the top on so many of the metrics, so many of the social metrics that, ending veteran homelessness and ending chronic homelessness, and having some of the best education systems in the country, having some of the best parks and beaches and recreation places, some of the best arts and humanities areas. And being centered between New York and Boston, Connecticut has so much going for it, and we have so many good things happening in our state. Grew 7,000 jobs last year. Again, we just have a number of things that have been coming out in the media lately that have been very, very positive for the state. So I think that we're rounding the corner of some of our greatest challenges that we've had, and I think we're coming out of it stronger. And so, I just try and always certainly tell the story of things that are positive in the state. Again, not whitewashing any of the challenges that we have, but trying to still be very positive about what's happening in our state and showing that we have great people here, the most educated and highly productive workforce. That's the reason why people come here. And so we need to be selling Connecticut, but we need to be selling its strengths as well every single day.
Senator Duff, thank you for
Thank you.
being here on our Capitol Conversation. It'll be an interesting year ahead, both in terms of the legislative session and the election, so we appreciate you talking about a number of different topics today. Covered a lot of things.
Thanks for having me.
Which is always good. Thank you for watching CTR TV. I'm Christy Olds.